In today's video, I take a look at a bunch of fishing lures from the Walmart bargain bin section. I'm gonna test out all of these baits, show you what they look like under the water, and give you my opinion on which one of these lures I think is worth the money. Let's get into it. If you've ever been to a Walmart fishing section, you have undoubtedly stumbled across a bin full of these baits right here. Yum soft plastic baits. The great thing about these baits is that they're very affordable. Each pack costs around $2.50, which is cool, but to be honest, there's a lot of random looking lures and it's hard to know which ones are worth the money. Well, in this video, I want to put together some sort of a buying guide for you guys. I went out and bought 18 packs of Yum soft plastics from the bargain bins at Walmart. And today I'm gonna go over each one of these baits, show you what they look like under the water, show you what the action is like, and then I'm gonna give you my opinion on which ones I think are the best out of this whole group. One quick disclaimer before we get into the video. This is not a sponsored video. Yum is not paying me to say any of this stuff. Walmart is not paying me to say any of this stuff. I bought all these baits with my own money. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. The first bait on the list is the Yum Craw Dad. At least it's what it's called right here on the sticker. I don't know if that's the actual name, but let's take a look at this bait. Here is the bait out of the package. It kind of reminds me of like the Berkley Pit Boss, except it doesn't have those extra legs. The main body of the bait has this ribbed profile right here, as you can see, and then it's got two little claws out the front. Honestly, this bait I think looks pretty decent under the water. The claws have a nice flaring action to them, and if you pull this bait through the water, the claws actually have a little bit of swimming action as well. I will say I kind of like the simple design. There's not a lot of extra tendrils and legs on this thing, which I think is cool. Now, one thing that I did notice about these baits is that some of the claws tend to be a little bit bent out of the package, but if you can get around that, this bait is decent in my opinion. Nothing groundbreaking, but still cool. Next up, we have another creature slash craw bait right here. Again, this just says Craw Dad on it. So I guess these baits don't have names, or the names aren't even on the packaging, which is kind of inconvenient. But nevertheless, let's take a look at this thing. This is kind of a traditional creature, you know, craw beaver style bait right here. You have kind of a similar body than the last bait, except this one has a little bit more going on in the front. It's got two little claws out the front that kind of have an interesting design to them, and then two little antenna like so. The action of this bait, again, is solid. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it does have a nice fluttering up and down action in the water. The claws and the antenna do have some nice up and down movement, and overall I'd say this is a pretty solid creature bait in my opinion. Again, kind of like the last one, nothing revolutionary. It's nothing that's gonna blow your socks off, but if you want an inexpensive creature bait or craw bait to flip and pitch, this is a solid option. One thing I will say too is I really like Yum's plastic. I think it's excellent. So all of these baits are probably gonna feel really good in the hand. Next up, we have this bait right here. This is kind of Yum's version of a fluke. And as you can see, this bait looks pretty cool. I have to say, I really like the design of this bait. It has a little bit more of a narrow head. It's got a nice slit in the bottom for your hook to go. And then the tail is actually quite thin, and it has this little paddle tail out on the end. Taking a look at this bait under the water, I have to say I absolutely love the action of this bait. I think it looks very, very nice. It's got a beautiful gliding, quivering action, and the really limber tail definitely helps give this bait some beautiful action. Again, the plastic on this bait feels absolutely amazing. Awesome bait. Yum is killing it with this one. Okay, moving on, we have a little curly tail grub right here. This would be a great bait to use for panfish, crappie, bluegill, that sort of thing. Honestly, when I put this bait in the water, I wasn't expecting much, but I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised. It's got a beautiful darting up and down action. As you can see, the plastic on this bait is quite limber. It's not super stiff, which I absolutely love. The color scheme's cool too, and overall, I'd say this is a solid little soft plastic grub. I don't think it's gonna do anything revolutionary, but again, inexpensive, solid. I think there's like 14 of these in a pack, which for $2.50 is a pretty good deal. Next up, we have the big 10-inch worm. This is an interesting bait. Now, to be honest, I don't fish a lot of huge worms. I know some people really like these for big bass, but for myself, don't fish a lot of these, so I was interested to see what this bait looked like under the water. And I have to say, when I put this bait under the water, I was underwhelmed. To be honest, the tail doesn't have much action in my opinion. The overall profile I think is okay, and I think this definitely would catch fish, but I definitely think there are better options. I would recommend like a Berkley power worm. Those are really good. Again, the plastic is super limber and soft on this bait, which is a plus. The overall action I found to be, again, kind of underwhelming. Next up, we have these little guys right here. These are little baits that are designed to be fished on a Ned Rig. They kind of look like a little stub of a Yum dinger, which is basically what they are. They're solid in my opinion. If you like fishing the Ned Rig, these are a nice little budget-friendly option. I know some of the Z-Man stuff They can run for like $5 a pack, and this again, $2.50 for a pack of 6. Now, one thing I will say, these are not nearly as limber as the Z-Man plastic, but overall, I'd say these are a solid choice. Again, if you're on a budget and you want to fish the Ned Rig, pretty cool little baits right there. Again, the one thing that I cannot stress enough is that these baits are very affordable. As you know, the price of everything's going up right now. Okay, next up, a pretty weird looking bait right here. When I first saw this, I wasn't sure if it was a frog or a crawfish, but then once I took a closer look, I realized that this is a frog. This is made to be fished on the top of the water. You can skim it over weeds, skim it over lily pads, or just fish it in open water. I was pretty skeptical of this bait, honestly, but once I put it in the water and fished it on the surface, I was pleasantly surprised. The legs do have a nice kicking action, and they do move quite a bit of water. Now, is this the best kind of soft plastic topwater frog? No. But again, for $2.50, you get a 6-pack of these, and they work really well. Next up, we have another creature bait. This kind of looks like a copy of the Zoom Brush Hog, in my opinion. It's got a very similar profile. It is a little bit different, but overall, it's got the same basic shape and design. And I have to say, the action is fairly similar to a Zoom Brush Hog, in my opinion. If anything, maybe the Zoom Brush Hog has just a little bit more action under the water. But in my opinion, this bait looked about how I expected it to look under the water. I am not super wild about this design, and the action in my mind was a tad bit underwhelming, but overall, I'd say it's an okay choice. Again, this style of bait's not really my favorite. Okay, next up, we have these really weird fish grub things. These baits are interesting. I actually bought these a while ago, and I never really fished with them too much. They're kind of bizarre looking. I'll show you guys what one looks like out of the pack. As you can see, they kind of look like Swedish fish for some reason. They remind me a little bit of that. And the tail out the back is really interesting. It's paper thin, and it's supposed to have little ribs, so it flutters. It's got a little dorsal fin up top, and I believe this bait is made to be fished on a drop shot, so that's what I did here. I rigged it up on a drop shot. As you can see, there's the action under the water. Kind of underwhelmed by the action. The tail does give a decent little quivering action, but there's way better baits, in my opinion, that you could put on a drop shot. So not super great, and I wouldn't really recommend this bait just because you can get other baits on this list that'll look better on a drop shot under the water. Next up, we have some sort of crawfish trailer, as you can see right here. Now, I'm pretty sure back in the day I actually used to fish with these, and I don't really remember much about them, but once I put them back in the water, I was pleasantly surprised. The action of this bait is a lot better than I remembered. The claws have a nice, aggressive, flopping action in the water. You can put it on the back of a jig, or in my opinion, you could just fish it like this. It'd be a great little bait for like punching mats or something. You can also just slow reel this bait through the water, and it's got a really nice action as well. So overall, I was impressed by the action of this bait. I think this is a solid choice. If you're looking for a really compact craw, or if you want something to put on the back of a jig, this will definitely work really well. We have the Yum Lizard. I believe this is one of Yum's more popular baits. Now, for me personally, I never really got on the lizard hype train. I never really threw them very much, but this is what the bait looks like under the water. In my opinion, it's pretty meh as far as baits go, but the tail does have a nice little kicking action, and the little arms kick as well. So I think this will definitely get the job done. I'm not much of a lizard guy, again, so I don't really know what a good quote-unquote lizard bait is supposed to look like. This action seems a tad bit muted when compared to like a Zoom lizard, but again, I don't fish with lizards very much. Okay, moving on to this guy right here. This is a little micro crawfish. As you can see right there, it's a tiny little crawfish body. It's got all the legs and the claws out front. Now, I have to say, when I first picked this out of the bin, I was not super enthused about it, but you know, I wanted to test out a bunch of lures, so I did pick this one up. However, I put this guy on a little jig head and I put it in the water, and I was very impressed by the action of this bait. It's got a beautiful little crawfish profile under the water. As you can see, the claws are very limber and they flop around quite a bit. And again, I was super impressed by the action of this bait. I did not think it was going to be this good. I love fishing a lot of small creeks and streams, and I think this would be a fantastic option for some finicky smallmouth bass. I think this thing would kill them, honestly, in the right circumstances. So this is going in the tackle box. Moving on, we have some straight tail worms right here. Let me pop one out of the pack and show you guys what they look like. They look pretty standard as far as straight tail worms go. One thing I will say is that they are very, very limber. The plastic, again, is super soft. I just rigged these up on a Texas rig and fished them under the surface. And as you can see, the action of this bait is about what you'd expect from a straight tail worm. I don't know if it's going to do anything revolutionary, but I think the action definitely is solid. I think these baits would work very well. I think these would look really good on a shaky head or a drop shot or even a wacky rig. So overall, I'd say solid option for the money. Moving on, we have another creature bait right here. This is another kind of crawfish style bait. But as you can see there, pretty standard crawfish design. You got a basic worm style body with little legs out the side, then you have 2 claws out front. Now again, one of the things I want to mention is the claws are a little bit twisted. I think because these are in like bargain bins where they're all just crammed in there, some of the baits are a little bit deformed. But overall, I have to say, once I put this bait under the water, I was really happy with the action. I think it's got a great action in the water. The claws definitely have some vibration. They move water, and overall, I really like just kind of the compact design of this bait. It's not over-engineered. This is a great option if you're looking for a crawfish style creature bait. Really good. Okay, moving on to a bait that I was not super thrilled about when I first saw it. This guy right here. This is a pretty interesting looking creature bait in my opinion. It's kind of a hybrid between a lizard and a crawfish. As you can see, it's got a longer kind of worm body, 2 little arms that come out the side, and then 2 big claws down at the bottom. Out of all of the creature baits, I think this is my favorite. This thing is pretty sweet. I put it under the water and I loved the action. I also just love the profile, and I think this color is really good. This is something that I would throw if I was targeting big bass. You know, if I was flipping mats or flipping docks and I wanted to increase my chances of catching a big old bass, this is a bait that I would pick up because it's got a little bit more bulk to it. It's got a little bit more of a presence. The claws have a really nice action under the water, nice flapping look to them. And overall, I just love the shape of the bait. I kind of like this thing. I think I'm going to put it in the tackle box because, again, it just looks like something a big old bass would like to eat. Next up, we have some swim baits. These I was pleasantly surprised by. They have a really nice profile. The plastic on these is just a little bit stiffer, which I actually like. The tail on this bait also looks really good. It looks like it's going to be able to move some water. And once I put this bait under the water, I was again very impressed by the action. I think the action is great. If I was going to rank the action out of 10 on this bait, I'd give it a solid 7.5. It's got great action under the water. It's got a little bit more of a rolling action, which is kind of sweet, and the tail puts off a ton of vibration and a ton of flash, a lot more than I actually was expecting. Okay, moving on to another bait that I was kind of underwhelmed by when I first picked it out of the bin. It's this guy right here. Now, these look very similar to a Berkley G Minnow, which I absolutely love. I actually made a video about that bait. You can check it out right here. I'm really proud of that video. It turned out really cool. I love Berkley G Minnows, and this bait almost is a carbon copy of Berkley G Minnows, which is not a bad thing. I really actually love the profile of this bait. The plastic on this bait, in my opinion, feels a lot better than a Berkley G Minnow. Berkley G Minnows tend to be quite stiff. I also really dig this color. It's kind of this translucent silver color, which I think is really cool. I rigged this bait on a little jig head and put it under the water, and I have to say, I absolutely love the action of this bait. I would argue it's almost got a better action than the Berkley G Minnow, if I can say that. It kind of hurts my soul to say. I actually almost prefer this action over the Berkley G Minnow again because it's a little more pliable. Now, I will say the Berkley G scent I still think is superior, but this bait does have the yum attractant scent built in, which is going to be a good thing. You never really know when you're going to need a little minnow presentation like this. I think crappie would also love this bait as well. So again, very surprised by this bait and the way it looked under the water. I was not expecting to like this bait as much as I did. Good stuff. Okay, the last bait I want to talk about is one that caught my attention instantly when I was going through the bin. I was really excited about these baits, and for good reason. They look absolutely fantastic. I love this profile so much. As you guys know, I love throwing swim baits, and I love swim baits that have more of a minnow shape to them, and these are that. The biggest thing that I noticed about these baits is the tail. The tail is actually reinforced and it looks quite thick, so that means it's gonna move a lot of water. And again, the plastic on these feels amazing. I just wanted to put these on a jig head and start throwing them right away. And once I put them under the water, my suspicions were confirmed. These things are fantastic. The action on this bait is like an 8.5 out of 10. I absolutely love it. And what I love about this bait is you can actually fish it quite slow and that tail's still gonna move a lot of water. Some swim baits you have to fish them quite fast to get the tail to move. These have an effortless tail movement under the water, and again, you don't have to fish them very fast. And what's cool is that you can actually find a variety of sizes. Here's a bigger size right here, and these things are just fantastic. Again, I love the design of them. They have kind of a flat top right here. I'm going to be making a dedicated video about these just because I love them so much, so stay tuned for that. I am super excited to test these out more and to fish with them more. All right, guys, I want to really quickly go over my top 5 baits out of this whole lineup, starting off with number 5, the little crawfish right here. Again, pleasantly surprised by the action. Really like the profile and the way this bait looks and moves under the water. Coming in at number 4, we have these little minnows right here. Again, was not expecting to get such great action out of these little baits right here. Love the plastic, and the color on this bait is super cool as well. Coming in at number 3, we have the big old creature bait right here. Again, did not expect to like this as much as I did. Love the profile, love the action under the water. Definitely gonna put this in the tackle box, and I have a feeling I can catch some big fish with it. Coming in at number 2, we have another swim bait right here, this guy. These, again, were pleasantly surprising under the water. Great action, really cool little profile. Then coming in at number 1, I don't think this is a secret, this little guy right here, this compact swim bait. Absolutely love this thing. Again, I love it so much, I'm gonna make a dedicated video about it because I think a lot of people are missing out and overlooking this bait. So guys, there you go. Hopefully next time when you're out at Walmart and you wanna try out some of these bargain bin yum lures, you'll have a little bit of an idea as to what to pick up. Again, this is all my opinion, this is subjective, and I have to say that for the most part, all of these baits are solid. They're all gonna catch fish. Some are better than others, like I said, but overall, I'm still very impressed with the quality of baits that you get for the price. Thanks again for watching, guys. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know down in the comments below. And as always, stay hooked. I'll see you later.